Hi and welcome to Viewmaster Travels. This time it's real SP9037, St. Petersburg, Florida, dated 1949. In this episode, we're looking for 4 vintage picture locations. I usually try and figure out exactly where the Viewmaster photographer was standing and stand in the same place. For this trip, that took quite a bit of detective work. Problem was, I knew nothing about St. Petersburg. We were really visiting Weeki Wachee Springs, and I noticed St. Pete's was just down the road, and I thought, hey, don't I have a Viewmaster of that? Yes, I do. So we headed down Route 19 to see what we could find. Here's the first picture we were trying to find. It's labeled The Famous Green Benches, and the picture was taken in 1949. We had this modern map, but that's it. Now I had to figure out where this picture was taken. First clue was the green benches. Turns out St. Pete was famous for the public benches on the downtown sidewalks, as all these postcards show. This one looks very similar. The street lamps match, as do the parking meters and the style of cars. It's labeled as being on Central Avenue, which is here on the map. And this one's interesting. Look at these distinctive sidewalk tiles that are hexagons. They match the picture. This one's labeled Central Avenue looking east, but it's not exactly what we're looking for. The cars in the postcard are parked differently, and the sidewalk we're looking for is more narrow. The next clue that leapt out at me was this flag, and as much as the colors faded, I thought that was the flag of Costa Rica, but I couldn't find anything relating St. Petersburg in Costa Rica. Looking closer, especially when it's in 3D, you can see that the flags are hanging from wires across the street, so not a flag on a building, but maybe a festival of some kind. Then I found this postcard, the annual Festival of the States, with the exact same flag hanging down. The Festival of the States was started in 1917 as a celebration that took place in April to try to keep northern snowbirds from returning home too early. The city wanted floats from each of the tourists' home states to be in the parade, and maybe those tourist dollars would stay in town a little longer to watch. So the postcard does match the year the Viewmaster was taken, 1949, but the parade ran down Central Avenue to 16th Street, so doesn't help pinpoint where we needed to go. But this next clue does. This sign over here for Child's Pharmacy. Searching around online, I found this old matchbook, and that gave me the exact address on Central Avenue we needed, 337 Central. So we headed into St. Pete's, parked downtown here, and walked over to the 300 block of Central to see what's there now. The Famous Green Benches. Well, that's a bit disappointing. Nothing from the original photo still there. Both blocks on either side have been demolished, and even the next block down's an empty lot today. I did find this even older picture from the exact same location. See, these buildings are the same. In this one, you can see the American Bank and Trust building, which was demolished in 1977. Child's Pharmacy was one of the oldest in St. Pete's, originally Freer's drugstore. It was purchased in 1921 by World War I veteran Harry W. Childs, who moved to the city from McKeesport, Pennsylvania after the war. I found this picture of the pharmacy, but it's on a corner lot, so not the same location. Seems it originally was at 4th Street. It had to move to 337 when their original location was demolished for the construction of a skyscraper and arcade. When they moved, they added a soda fountain and kitchen, and you could sit on their green benches with your lunch to socialize. And when the original location became available again, Harry's brother Walter opened a second location there just a block away. Harry got married to Marjorie Weed in 1957 and closed his pharmacy in 62. His brother died in 74, and Harry passed away in 1977. But I wondered where the pharmacy's second location was, so we continued down the block to 4th and Central. Turns out it's now a very nice chocolate shop in a really cool looking old building. And looking at it, I realized it was our next target. Central Avenue and 4th Street. This picture was actually taken from here, just a half block down on 4th Street, and in this case the view seems basically the same. This landmark building is called the Snell Arcade. This was the building being built that made Harry Childs move his pharmacy down the street. It was built in 1926 by Kentucky pharmacist C. Perry Snell, who moved from Bowling Green to St. Pete's in 1899. His big claim to fame in town was dredging new land in the bay to create Snell Isle, a neighborhood north of downtown. While building his island neighborhood, Snell decided to also build what he hoped would be his masterpiece, a downtown office building and shopping arcade, a radical exercise in eclectic architecture.
Families, friends, and residents alike, transplanted from afar or native to the Point of Pines, must be supplied with all the things they need. Stores and markets, goods and service, are being born in new communities, and business prospers.
The shopping arcade concept was very popular in the 20s, basically an interior shortcut through a building with shops inside, giving visitors a break from the sun and the rain and creating more storefronts in the same city block. Downtown had several of them, and the Snell Arcade is one of the few remaining ones. Snell built this during St. Pete's biggest boom times, when it was seeing an average of 12 new citizens move into town each day. But that boom went bust soon after the building was completed, and he was forced to sell it to another pharmacy, Walgreens. The subsequent owners made many modifications, removing much of Snell's beautiful architectural details. By the time the Viewmaster picture was taken, the building was owned by wealthy banker Hubert Rutland, and he made radical changes, cutting the gorgeous arcade space into 2 floors for offices, and more destructive alterations to the building than any other owner. Today the building's been somewhat restored, but it's still in rough shape. Our chocolate snacks were great, and we browsed the little shops, including this one, another reference to the green benches that would have lined the street here. Actually, where we were standing was the origin of the whole green bench thing. Before Snell built this arcade, this was known as Mitchell's Corner, after saltwater taffy tycoon Noel Mitchell, who'd moved to St. Pete's from Rhode Island in 1904. He took his taffy fortune and bought the entire city block at 4th and Central, putting his new real estate office there. Business was slow though, as more people were coming into his office to sit down and rest than to buy real estate. So he had the idea to put benches on the sidewalk out front, making sure the large orange benches had advertisements for his business on the back. Other downtown businesses quickly did the same thing until every street was full of benches of all different colors. Some years later, St. Pete's Mayor Al Lang actually passed an ordinance requiring all benches be a standard size and colored green. There's more history to these benches we'll get to, but first, our next goal. Mirror Lake. There wasn't much challenge in finding this location since it's clearly marked on the map, so we walked a couple blocks north to the lake. We couldn't actually walk around the lake since there was a lot of construction going on. Mirror Lake reminds me a lot of what we learned at MacArthur Park in Los Angeles. They were both originally the city's freshwater supply, and both originally named something else. LA's Western Lake was called West Lake, and St. Pete's Reservoir used to be called Reservoir Lake. Both lakes became public parks after they weren't needed for water anymore, but since we couldn't explore Mirror Lake, we headed back into town. Walking through the Florida sunshine got me thinking about St. Pete's nickname, Sunshine City, a term coined in 1900 by medical journal publisher F.A. Davis, who also ran St. Petersburg's first wood-fired electricity service, as well as the electric streetcar system. Davis had picked up on the trend of the supposed health benefits of living in Florida and published articles in his own medical journals to get people to visit St. Pete's, calling it Health City and Sunshine City. And when they arrived, he'd meet them in their hotel lobbies to try and convince them to buy real estate from him. St. Pete's was no stranger to self-promotion. It was the first city in the U.S. to hire a public relations director, newspaper reporter John Lodwick, who agreed to work for free for a year to promote the town. Lodwick came up with all kinds of schemes to get tourists to visit his city. He established the Purity League, which appointed an official bathing suit inspector to stop the frolics on the beaches. This made headlines in all the northern newspapers, who debated the legality of such a thing and wondered what exactly was all this beach frolicking about anyway. Little did they know it was a ploy by Lodwick and the mayor to get eyes on St. Petersburg. He even invented what came to be known as the Lodwick technique. Find a northern tourist in the lobby of a hotel and take him out to see the sights. Maybe get a picture of him with some sea vamps or fishing on the pier. Then send the candid picture and pre-written story to his hometown newspaper, which eagerly reported on their citizens' exploits in the Sunshine City. This all worked so well that to some, St. Pete's nickname became the city that advertising built. The Pier. The pier in St. Pete's is easy to find. We walked the 5 or 6 blocks through town and arrived at a really large park and museum area. There's still a beach about halfway down the pier, and the view from there is pretty much the same. St. Pete's pier history goes all the way back to the city's founding. Detroit City Mayor's son, John Williams, purchased the land that would become St. Petersburg in 1876. He'd come to live in Florida because the northern winters aggravated his asthma. Williams' land was pretty hard to get to, being on a peninsula, so he managed to convince Leo Tolstoy's great-grandnephew and fledgling railroad tycoon, Peter Demens, who'd come to the U.S. from Russia in 1881, to extend his new railroad all the way to Williams' property. Demens ran the line through town all the way into Tampa Bay by building a railroad pier. He knew fishing would be a huge industry in the area and wanted to make it easy to load the day's catch onto a refrigerated train. In exchange for this, Williams gave Demens part of his land holdings. The two of them flipped a coin to decide who could name the new town, and Demens won, naming it St. Petersburg after his childhood home in Russia. As a consolation prize, Williams got to name the town's first hotel and named it the Detroit after his childhood home up north. The railroad pier held a monopoly on pier stuff until 1896, when local boat builder D.F.S. Brantley built a competing pier a few blocks north. He added a large bathing pavilion and focused on leisurely uses. A few years later, mining baron Edwin H. Tomlinson built a third pier 3 blocks south and drilled a well near it, calling it the Fountain of Youth Pier. This was very popular with the tourists because it turned out the artesian well water was laced with lithium. In 1904, Brantley sold his pier to F.A. Davis, the guy that ran the electric company and trolley lines. He built a new pier, called it the Electric Pier, lit the whole thing with light bulbs and ran his trolleys all the way to the end of it. And 10 years later, the city got involved and built a pier just 10 feet north of the Electric Pier, the Municipal Recreation Pier, intending to boost tourism. In 1921, a major hurricane hit St. Pete's and destroyed all the piers. But by this point, the tourism value of having a pier was clear, so the city funded a $1 million pier project, building the $1 million pier in 1926. This is the pier seen in the Viewmaster picture, with its dance hall casino at the end. And this was what St. Pete's was famous for all the way up until it was demolished in 1967. Then in 73, the inverted pyramid pier replaced it, which lasted until 2004. Then there were many years with no pier, but finally, the one we'd found had opened in 2020. Like we saw with Silver Springs, when the Viewmaster pictures were taken, this beach was for white people only. Black residents were only allowed to swim at the base of the old railroad pier. It would be 7 years after this picture was taken that African American citizens would test these policies in court by filing legal suit against the city. The city lost the case, but instead of opening the beach up, they closed it for repairs, not letting anyone on for 5 months, only after they realized how much money they'd lost by not letting tourists use the beach. And that brings us back to those famous green benches. They were also for white people only, and this policy never changed. The city eventually removed the benches in the 60s, not because too many black people used them, but because too many old people used them. The city was trying to market itself to a younger generation. More than anything, these green benches became an ugly symbol of segregation to some people. So we were surprised to learn that a few green benches are still in use today by local businesses. We drove north on 4th Street and found one. It's outside the Chick-fil-A. I do always wonder what they think as I pull up, jump out, and take a picture of their bench and then drive off. On our way to the Chick-fil-A, we'd passed a sign for the beautiful sunken gardens, and I thought, don't I have a Viewmaster of that? Yes, I do. But that's a story for another episode.